I've been to Yad HaShmona, the Museum of Remembrance of the Holocaust in Israel. I've been to the really incredible one in Washington, D.C., and always they tell you, we want the world to remember so it never happens again. Well, we do remember, but it will happen again. It will happen again. Under the vengeance of God against those who reject the Messiah. Jews who die today without the Messiah perish in hell, just like Gentiles who die without Christ. And in the future, when the divine judgment falls upon the whole world of unbelievers, it'll fall upon the Jewish unbelievers as well. It will be a Holocaust. And the agent of that purging, according to Zechariah, is going to be this great force led by Antichrist that comes against Israel. God used, by the way, pagan nations in the past as His instruments of judgment, didn't He, on Israel? The Chaldeans, the Babylonians, the Syrians, and others. But it will be a time, times, and half a time, says Daniel, 3.5 years. Now, just to show you how consistent this is, turn to the book of Revelation for a moment. In the book of Revelation to chapter 11. Chapter 11. It starts out in chapter 11 with a vision of a measuring rod used to measure the temple of God and the altar and those who worship in it. Well, it seems to be this is being measured out for a purpose. Verse 2, it says it's been given to the nations. The Jews will reestablish their temple. They will reestablish their system of worship. But it will be measured out, as it were, by God for judgment and given to the nations. And the nations that surround Jerusalem, that come against it, that time of tribulation of Daniel 12, those nations are going to overrun Jerusalem. They're going to bring desolation to Jerusalem and Israel, and they will tread underfoot the holy city, verse 2, for how long? 42 months. That's 3.5 years. 3.5 years. Consistent. Verse 3 adds that this will be 1,260 days. 1,260 days is 3.5 years when you count 360-day years. Turn to chapter 12 and verse 6. Here's a picture of the woman. The woman is Israel. In this imagery, the woman is Israel. She gave birth to the Son, who is the Messiah. But the woman, who is Israel, fled into the wilderness where she had a place prepared by God. The remnant that survive, that belong to God, that He's protecting to go into His kingdom on earth alive, He will preserve. This remnant of Jews will flee into the wilderness where there is a place prepared by God, so that there she might be nourished for 1,260 days. 3.5 years. So while the 3.5 years of terror goes on in Jerusalem, the remnant is protected for the same period of time by God in another place. Go down to verse 14, and the language is exactly the language of Daniel 12. 2 wings of the great eagle were given to the woman in order that she might fly into the wilderness to her place. This remnant, how are they going to get out of Jerusalem when the Antichrist comes? How are they going to flee? The Lord's going to take them to a prepared place. How? 2 wings of the great eagle. Is that an angel? Perhaps angelic deliverance. It's going to be a period of supernatural activity, so it's not hard to imagine that. But wherever they're going, in the place that God's going to protect them in the wilderness, this remnant, called she because the woman pictures the remnant, is nourished for, here's the language of Daniel, time, times, time 1, times 2, half a time, 3.5 from the presence of the serpent. Serpent is Satan. Satan, through the Antichrist, goes after Israel. God uses them as an agent of judgment. 2/3 of the rebels are purged out judged, 1/3 protected, redeemed, carried by God, protected for the same duration of time as Jerusalem is trampled underfoot. One more passage that is worthy of our brief look is Revelation 13 and verse 5. All of this, of course, is under the dragon. Verse 4, they worship the dragon, who is Satan, who gave authority to the beast, who is the Antichrist. And there was given to him, this Antichrist, a mouth, speaking arrogant words and blasphemies, and authority to act for 42 months was given to him. Again, the language is crystal clear. The time, whether you're talking 42 months, 1,260 days, times and half a time, it all comes out to 3.5 years. When you see Jerusalem surrounded, when you see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet, which is the Antichrist goes into the holy place and on the very altar where God is worshipped sets up an image of himself, according to Revelation 13, according to 2 Thessalonians 3. He causes the whole world to worship him, starting a new religion, the worship of this great world leader who is possessed by Satan. That is the desecration. That is the abomination that launches the desolation against Israel. It is judgment on unbelievers, but it is the purging out of the true believers who are then rescued and kept safe for that period of time so that they can go into the kingdom. The gospel will continue to be preached during that time by 2 witnesses, according to chapter 11, who die in front of the whole world. The whole world will see them. It can only happen in a world where there's satellite television. 3.5 days later, symbolically, they will rise from the dead in front of everyone. And this will launch a revival of salvation in Jerusalem. So it probably happens right at that very initial point. People in Jerusalem are going to be terrified, and then they're going to give glory to the true God. Now go back for a moment to Daniel chapter 12.